Well, hello there, and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America, the podcast. It is Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And coming to you from the left and wishing you a happy Valentine's Day, I am Ted Rall.
I never liked Valentine's Day. Do you?
I don't like Valentine's Day because if you remember in Peanuts, the Charlie Brown experience of not receiving any Valentines
Aw.
in the mail. He always went to check the mailbox with the flag, and there were never any Valentines for him. And I had similar experiences. We had this thing where in home, like in elementary school and in home and in the junior high school and high school, you could send Valentines to your classmates. And there was like an in-house service that would let you do it, like in high school, to your homeroom. And I never got any. Or maybe I just got there were the teachers who were like, you have to send one to everyone, but never like an actual one that was sent voluntarily, not at like by someone who was being held hostage by ISIS or something. So I guess I was a seriously fugly kid and nobody gave me, but then it was funny. I guess it was my sophomore year, either my sophomore or junior year in high school. Not only did I receive the volunteer Valentine from my soon-to-be girlfriend, but also a giant bouquet of flowers. And it was kind of like, ka-ching! And then, and everyone was like, who's it from? They say, what? She's super hot. It must be a mistake. And she must have been hot.
Nice.
It must have been a mistake, but we went out for quite a while, and it was like but the point is that, so I don't want to say it was always a miserable experience. The last 2 out of 12 years were good, but 2 out of 12 isn't really a raging victory.
No.
So I have to say it's one of those things that is kind of designed to make you feel bad. Like it's like Pulitzer Award time. It's like you're just it's one of those things that like turns 99% of the population into, by definition, a loser, and there's a few winners, and they are to be hated. So that's my take.
No, okay.
What about you? How come?
Oh, I've just always hated it because I never liked the idea that you're being forced to express love. I mean, it's just like either you express it through your life or you don't. I got, it took a while. Janine, my wife, likes it. So I get flowers and a card and chocolates sometimes.
That's wise.
But
that's wise. If you like waking up alive in the morning, that's always wise.
Yeah. But I mean, but she understands my dislike of Valentine's. I mean, it's
a performative holiday. It's an, you know what it is? It's an amateur holiday. It's sort
amateur.
It's amateur. It's like New Year's Eve when dumbasses learn how to drink or don't. Or St. Patrick's Day, same thing. Or Halloween when it's like, oh, let's be wild and crazy this one day a year. It's kind of like why now? Why not other times?
Yeah.
If there was like National Sex Day, would people be expected to be celibate all year round, except for that one day?
Well,
to go to an orgy? I mean, what? It just doesn't make any sense.
No. And like I said, if I see something nice for Janine, I mean, I'm not crazy about birthdays either, or Christmas.
I think it's a vestige, though. I think it's a vestige of a time when the sexes were more segregated, and it was like 19th century, and it was like, oh, well, I've always really liked him, or back then, I've always really liked her, but this is my opportunity to like express my love, and it's socially acceptable to do it because, and no one's like, God, what an asshole. It's Valentine's Day. If you don't like him, you don't like him. It's kind of that opening. It's like The Purge, but good.
Well, okay. So now that we've rained all over Valentine's Day, let's talk about happier stuff. Oh, wait, no, we don't do that here at the DMZ America podcast. Let's go to a
very short podcast. Yeah.
So the Biden age thing, you and I had a very special DMZ America, the podcast episode last week on this issue. It seems to have died down somewhat, but it's still a story that never quite stops,
We should remind
Now,
Scott, you should remind the good people in case they have not, they forgot what happened with Robert Hur's special counsel report stuff.
Well, Robert Hur's, well, he just said it. Robert Hur's special counsel report on the classified papers found that then Vice President Joe Biden had taken these papers when he wasn't supposed to, and apparently he shared them with friends and family. And the special counsel said, but we're not going to prosecute him because he'll just come off to a jury as a nice, very forgetful old man. Effect.
Yes.
And they enumerated things like he could not say within a few years when he served as vice president. He could not say within a few years what year his son Bo passed away. And then, of course, the smartest thing he could ever have done is called a press conference, which he did.
A rager.
And then, yeah, and he's just came off as just a really angry old guy. And to compound things, if you're going to do this, Ted and I talked about this off camera, off mic, but you're right. If you're going to do that, if you're going to do what he did, every single sentence out of your face
Every syllable
has to be right, has to be correct.
Yeah, perfect.
But instead, he conflated the president of Egypt with the president of Mexico.
Two countries that are not typically conflated.
No, in fact, they're not. I think most of our listeners will know geography, but if they don't, they're not even close to each other.
Or shaped similarly. Like if you learned, like as a kid, from one of those like jigsaw puzzle pieces where each country is a piece, like they don't look the same. You would, if you were a mentally deranged 5-year-old, you wouldn't make that mistake.
But a mentally deranged 81-year-old did make that mistake. It was a really bad performance. It was a stupid decision. There's still, it just confirmed what the report said in a lot of ways. And now today, apparently, it's being reported that the White House has sent letters to the press complaining about how they covered the story.
This is like, what's funny here is there is only one solution to this problem if you're, in part of the reelection campaign. And that is to send the president out for a lot of high profile, unscripted appearances. And, obviously he's not, so they're not sending him out to do town halls. They're not challenging Trump to 6 debates. Trump said he wanted to debate. They're not sending him over to Fox to be like, look, I can mix it up with mean Sean Hannity. They're not doing any of those things. Now, that is the answer. That solves the problem. If someone says you're out of weight, if President Stantis is not physically fit enough to be president, and then it's like they're setting the bar at 8 feet. It's his 7th event in the decathlon. Another gold for Scott Stantis. It's like, then it's kind of like, thus endeth the theological discussion for today, right? But the fact that they can't do that, it just confirms them. By the way, I love this whole idea, like, he's awesome one-on-one. So he's really great, which of course reminds me of what they used to say about Hillary Clinton. One-on-one, she'll drink you under the table. She's more fun than a barrel of monkeys. It's like, okay, so when she runs for the president of Liechtenstein, she may be able to campaign one by one. But 330 million people live in the United States. About 150 million of them vote. That's going to take some time. And I don't think Biden's going to live long enough. Any of us are going to live long enough for that. So it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's and the story, just like I said, just keeps rolling along, and it keeps rolling along because he's old. I mean, he just is I think he has cognitive issues. Clearly, I think he has, and memory issues, and he's just too damned old. He said he was going to run for 1 term, and he should have stuck to that. I still am not confused by why he's running for a 2nd term, other than it's pure ego. I mean, you just want to be a 2-termer.
Yeah,
so
that's right. I think, and what's funny, I think you and I have talked about this, and I'm not sure. I'd like to check in with you because sometimes, your views change over these things because I've known you for a long time. I mean, I don't know why presidents care about a second term. You're a student of history. Second
Yeah.
terms are benighted. I mean, think
Yeah.
about think about second term is when Bill Clinton suffered from Monica Gate and accomplished absolutely nothing except being embroiled in scandal and getting impeached. Ronald Reagan, he was plunging into Alzheimer's and Iran Contra, and he didn't accomplish much. I mean, I guess he did do the missile treaty. He did SALT II with Gorbachev. That's not nothing, but it's not really enough to justify the other stuff. I'm thinking about
Well,
second.
Nixon gets impeached. I mean, it's forced to resign from office.
Imagine if he'd left after one term. Eisenhower had a stroke. Most of his accomplishments were in his first term. Even FDR, famous 4-term president, really, truly a 3.25-term president. But like even FDR, his second term was a shit show. Like the Supreme Court was up his ass trying to overturn all of the New Deal, one item at a time. He was thinking of stacking the Supreme Court. That was unpopular. I mean, he went from being a wildly popular president to kind of having some trouble in 1940 a little bit against Wilkie, right? I don't know. I mean, second terms are overrated. Who needs them? Woodrow Wilson. He totally destroyed his legacy in his second term by lying us into World War I. I mean, I'm trying to think of anyone. Theodore Roosevelt, probably. You have to go back to Teddy to find a good second term.
Yeah, he didn't really have a second term. Don't forget, he ascended, on the death of McKinley, and then he ran for election in his own right. He wins
1 3/4 terms.
And then he promised that he wouldn't run again, which was a weird thing for him to promise, and he kept his promise and didn't do it. It's just, I really don't see, this scenario that a lot of people are pushing, that at the convention he's going to step down, or he's going to, at some point he's not going to run. He's shown no indication that he doesn't want to run.
No, well, he wants to run, but the point is that he can't run. I mean, look, did you have a chance to watch the Tucker Carlson interview of Putin?
No, not all of it. I saw pieces.
I mean, it's a slog. It's 2.5 hours. For someone like you and me who are dorks, everyone else I'd be like, skip up to minute 35 because that's Russian history. For you and me, like, watch that part twice. The Russian history part is fascinating. But like, anyway, at one point he talks about, he asked Bill Clinton, "Oh, can I, Russia would like to join NATO. What do you think?" Bill's like, "Love it. I'm all about it. Let's do it." And then he gets back, then he like ghosts Putin, and finally Putin like, "What's going on?" Well, yeah, actually I talked to some people and we can't do that. And Putin had that experience with 4 presidents, where he kept making deals, overtures with the president, making a deal, handshake deal, done. Let's work together. Like he wanted to join the war on terror and help the Americans in Afghanistan against the Taliban, because they hate the Taliban too. They have the radical Islamists in Chechnya and all that to deal with. So, and same thing. Bush is like, that's awesome, Vlad. I love you. Let's do it. And then it's like, yeah, actually, they told me. So Tucker said, "Well, who's really running? So what do you make of all this?" And Putin said, "Well, I got the impression that the president of the United States doesn't have the authority to make deals. Like basically he's a figurehead." And then so who is running the show? He's like, "I don't know. There's just some elites that they report to." And I guess my point here is the elites are going to, that Biden reports to. I believe that theory, that the president doesn't really, it's not like, I mean, Putin's an authoritarian ruler. I mean, he when he shakes his hand, if he makes a deal with President Xi, he speaks for the Russian Federation in the same way that President Xi speaks for the PRC. I just don't see. I don't see the elites letting this go on. 86% of the voters say that Biden's too old. The polls are bad. It's going.
Yeah, I was just. I was just going over some of the polls before we started this thing, and every swing state but Pennsylvania, Trump's ahead.
Yeah. Well, it will, and we could talk about why that is. I don't think that's I think that has more to do with the fact that swing states are in flyover country that have been left behind by the economy. But the point is that, and also, by the way, the New York Times had a really interesting, they run those focus groups from time to time, and they walk through all the questions at the answer. And there were some people who were like, they were independent voters who were overwhelmingly going to vote for Trump. And they said, and one guy's like, Trump is a pig. I can't stand him. I've always hated him. I'm going to vote for him. It's like they're looking to send a message. People are frustrated and angry. This is their way of sending a message. The only way out is for a Hail Mary pass, is for the Democrats to swap him out. They may not. You're totally right. The odds are against it, right? But just think about this, though. This is a major topic. This is another way to look at it, Scott. You've been in media for a long time. In my experience, once the stench of death is on a regime the way it is right now on Biden's administration, it's hard to get it off. You know what I mean? Like, now the buzzards are circling, and you have all these articles like, what if Biden steps down? How would that look like? What's the structure of it? How would the party replace him in Chicago? It's rare when you have that level of like intrigue, and like people are waiting for you to step aside, for you not to end up stepping aside, isn't it?
Well, yeah. It could, yeah. Like you said, the handlers, the money people, the leaders of the Democratic Party, the behind the scenes people, they're the ones who are going to have to come forward and say, listen, we can't, we're going to lose if we have this guy on the ticket. Now, what happens afterwards? And there's a lot of conjecture on that. Vice President Harris announced that she was ready to serve. It's like,
well, that's also kind of an interesting statement, right?
Yeah,
obviously the White House must have signed off on that. She didn't go rogue. She's not Biden. She doesn't do that. What did she, you know what I mean? Like, so they're concerned not only for Biden's reelection prospects, they're literally concerned that the rest of the world will think that there's no one at the helm.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's of course a real danger. And the other thing we forgot to mention is the traditional post Super Bowl interview on 60 Minutes of the president. That's a tradition. That's a thing that, and he decided not to do it.
Yep.
There's,
well, why would you want to talk to 60 million voters?
Yeah. What could possibly be the point? God, no, it's bizarre. It's just all these decisions are bizarre. And it tells me too, that he is making decisions that aren't going through, for instance, the communications professionals or the communications offices. Like, that I would love to have been a fly on the wall during the lead up to that press conference.
Oh, God.
I would just love to have heard him just keep saying, I'm going to go out there. Sir, that's really such a bad idea. And you knew people were
telling him, get out of my way, call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
so
happened.
Weird.
That has to be what happened.
Oh yeah. No, it has to be, because you and I, who are not at that level, would have said, don't do this.
Right.
You're mad. You're upset. Nobody ever said or did anything
smart. This is an uncontrolled
smart.
Environment.
Yeah. That's the other thing is, he could have had a address to the nation, or
which, by
speech.
the way, he never does anymore.
Which is because
remember those 30-minute Oval Office speeches that we used to suffer through all the time under previous presidents?
Yeah.
No more.
No, and that too. And that leads into bigger issues I have with this administration and with this president's ability to perform his duties. Because, if you're in trouble, what do? What's available to you as president of the United States? The bully pulpit. You go, you fly to Atlanta, you fly to Houston, you fly to Phoenix, you go and you whistle stop it. And you go, listen, I'm trying to sell this, free fish day in the United States. And that's your policy. And that's how you sell it. And he can't do it. He's not doing it. And I think too, you know, the address from the Oval Office. I mean, the few times he's done things like that in that
All
format,
he has to do is read.
but he does that terribly. He does it terribly.
He used to be able to do it, but
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
the thing is, it's when you look, here's the thing. Democrats are insane because I mean, and if you don't believe me, look at the comment sections in the New York Times and or the Washington Post around articles about this topic, and they're all like, "Vote blue no matter who. It doesn't matter. Look at Trump. Trump is crazy. Trump is insane. As long as it's between these two, you have to vote for Biden." Okay, look, good for you guys. You guys have made your decision. And if I had a gun up to my head and I was told I had to vote for one or the other of these two men, I too would vote for Biden. But the point is that it's like it is the hardest thing in the world when you're starting out in the world of politics, in our case as commentators, to accept things the way they are as opposed to the way you wish they were. I mean, I know that the polls say that basically on issue after issue after issue, Americans want things that are left wing, like socialized medicine, and you know, that kind of thing. But the point is, they're not willing to vote for. The reality is, they don't want a revolution. They're not ready for a revolution. I want them to be, but they're not. So I make commentary within the political environment as it currently exists. Democrats haven't learned to do that. Like James Carville, he's a realist. He sees what's up. David Axelrod from the Obama years also, he sees it, understands the problem. And the Democrats are just, they should throw him a ticker tape parade. And in fact, Biden calls him, you know, what was it, a bastard or a dick or something. And it's like, you know, it's like these guys, they think that like yelling at people is going to convince them. It's like they're not convinced. I mean, you have to think, if you think that this guy's, if a voter thinks that Biden is too old and decrepit to be a proper leader, what is the solution to that problem? The only solution to that problem is to make him not look old and decrepit. Can you do that? I mean, I don't know. Scott, could you and I could like Stantis Rall Political Consulting LLC, could we do that?
No,
like,
no, because he's not. Because he's not. I mean, what you do is you pick the things he does well. Well, that list is really short now.
That's
I mean,
the problem.
truly short. So, you know, like
it's a problem that can be saved. Can this campaign be salvaged?
Not as long as Joe Biden is the candidate. He just
then the answer to that question is no.
No, it cannot. It cannot be saved. No.
So yeah, I mean, I like to always look at, I mean, you know, Trump saved his campaign despite the Access Hollywood pussy grabbing tape. He saved it. I mean, I guess the thing is, we just don't think Biden has what it takes. So, I mean, I think if they have any fucking sanity at all, the DNC and the powers that be they'll open this up at the convention the way that you predicted might happen. I think that's
yeah, I mean, it could. And as we've said before, it could be Biden says, oh, listen, I've got a condition now that just got diagnosed. It would not be fair for the American people if I ran blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And then you open it up to the convention. Now is the
question
convention.
Is it Harris? Does he anoint
Yeah, I was about to say.
Or does he open it up? Or do they open it up? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I wonder how much.
You know the pros and cons, right? I mean, the pros are the pro to do it is to open it up is Harris is unpopular, would also lose. And also it would make her a really exciting convention. You know, it would counter the drama that Trump brings to the race and with its own drama and excitement. So the con is you're shivving a loyal lieutenant, a woman, a person of color. You have to worry about your voters taking umbrage. She has done nothing wrong. There are no scandals. She doesn't deserve it. It's not fair. And you don't know, she could rise to the occasion.
Well, yeah, she could. She isn't. She's doing better. I've said that numerous times, but it's still not presidential.
But she also
And
doesn't, she isn't given a lot of, she's not being given an opportunity to shine.
they tried early on. They tried early
I'm
on.
not sure that's true though. I mean,
Oh, with
like
the
when
border stuff.
when I thought about that, like why didn't she go to the border? And it's like, well, I mean, obviously Biden didn't want her to go to the border, right?
I still to this day scratch my head at that. That just seems to me to be, you're the border czar. You should go to, the border and check
Yeah.
things out. And she didn't, and she wouldn't. And I don't know. They just felt, I have to believe, and there are some rumors to this effect, that the White House, the West Wing, really thinks very little of her.
Yeah.
During the course of the campaign, they just found that she was just not up to the challenge, and compensated in a lack of knowledge, lack of experience with just being unpleasant.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, the thing is, I don't know, if that's true, because that's the spin coming from the Biden people. And it's entirely possible that that's true, but it's also just as possible that like the reason that she keeps shedding staff is not because she sucks or is annoying to work for, but because she is perceived as having no future inside the Democratic Party. And if you are, a remora on her shark, you're not going far, so you're better off attached to another politician.
yeah, yeah, I think that's very true. And no one really talks about her, if you notice. And in the circles we read, in the circles we live in, nobody really mentions that. Yeah,
If I were her, I'd be busting a move now and going.
yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, if I were her, I'd be like, what do you have to lose? You're not going to be vice president next year. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's
you might
true.
as well go for it, give yourself a national profile and like really speak up on things, say some controversial things. Maybe, for example, criticize Israel right now on what
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
with Rafah, that kind of thing. Could be something else.
yeah. That would be interesting. I don't know if any vice president has done that.
Biden, Biden went rogue
Yeah,
on gay marriage.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So, okay. Yeah, I guess she could just go rogue on this stuff if she wants to have a chance. If again, if this happens at the convention, if it happens at the convention, then all the pieces are going to be in place. That's how party people like it. They don't want, a free for all on the floor. They don't want to open up and say, okay, you guys decide.
No, well, but the thing is, there's no like, is the thing is, if Biden's delegates, if Biden's not running, then the delegates are no longer bound, and there's no like ward leaders and party bosses the way they're used to be. Aren't they free agents? Can they just do what they want?
The delegates?
Yeah,
They are depends on the rules of the state
I checked
Democratic
this.
organization.
I checked this. The Democratic delegates are all unbound if they become unbound if their candidate drops out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, then they can vote for whomever they want. And I mean, so they could, yeah, I mean, you could have a mutiny too. They could say, we want you to nominate Kamala Harris, and they could say, no, we don't want to. We're going to do something else. So they do have that. They have that option, but it's unlikely. I suspect that and talking about the poll,
what do you think they would do in that situation?
I
Who would
think
they
different.
who would they open it up to, like say 3 or 4 people, let them argue, and who would they be?
I think that the people would effectively nominate themselves. It would
Right.
be, it would be, Whitmer from Michigan. It would be
Harris,
Newsom,
maybe.
Harris. It would be Newsom from California. And then they'd give speeches.
Booker, maybe Klobuchar.
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah, I
think
can't get
Buttigieg
it.
would sit this one out.
Yeah, because this could be, I mean, it can go one of two ways. It can be, as you know, you've studied politics. I mean, the conventions that go to the crazy number of ballots, the nominee does not win.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, like John Davis in 1924 for the Democrats had
Was that
103
God?
votes at the
And
convention.
he was, by the way, I can't say enough bad things about him. This man was a monster. John Davis, was that it?
Yeah, John Davis.
John Davis was
Jim Davis was the evil cartoonist who gave us
yes, he's the one who brought us Garfield. But John Davis, he was nominated in, I want to say 24 to run against Calvin Coolidge. Is that
Mm.
correct? Okay.
Uh,
So
yes, that's right.
Davis, but
A
Davis
thankless job.
was the first Southerner to be nominated and since the Civil War, and he was a Southerner. He was the chief attorney for the United States to argue against, stay with me, kids, lynching laws. He literally went before the Supreme Court and argued
Hey,
against
when
lynching
did a
laws.
little lynching ever kill anyone?
I mean, and he just, I mean, and all, I mean, it was just like issue after issue after issue. I mean, to codify Jim Crow laws, he was just a miserable, horrible, wretched person. And anyway, so that's my
And
take on
Coolidge was
John Davis.
insanely popular with a roaring economy.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, and frankly, I've really grown. I read a biography, the popular biography that came out in the last few years, and he was kind of an extraordinary guy. He ran for every time he ran for office. Every time he never mentioned the opposition.
Why did he not want to run in 1928?
He was having health issues, and I suspect there's parts of the economy were starting to make noise that he didn't find. He thought that was not going to end well,
Best
and he
not to
was
be
right.
around
Yeah,
when
and
this goes
it
down.
was a health issue. Too, apparently he suffered from some kind of heart ailment, which
Mm,
did eventually take his life. He was shaving and he uh, thud.
that's how I want to die, while shaving.
Really?
No, not at all.
Okay, well we've covered that.
Well, wait. So wait. So
Wait,
what do
we're
you think?
waiting.
One more thing. What do you?
Okay.
So all right. So you think they would not just coronate Harris? You think they would open it up? And who would?
Oh
Who,
no, I think they would coordinate. I think there would be a coordination of Harris if Biden steps down, because I don't believe they would open up the convention and make it interesting.
that's what I think too. All right. Well, then that's what would happen. Okay.
And that's what happened in 68, when Johnson dropped out of the race. McCarthy wins, and with a rare exception, RFK won senior, wins the California, but McCarthy pretty much wins most of the primaries. They didn't have that many back then, but the ones they did have, he won. So coming into the convention, you would have thought it's going to be clean Gene, right? No, you would be mistaken. It turned out to be the vice president, Hubert Humphrey, was nominated.
Right. Very
And
analogous situation. And like, I mean, the thing is, would they? Yeah, I think in the end, the final winner would be like she's inoculated by wokeness. She's inoculated by being a woman of color. They can't dump her.
I agree with
They
you. I
could
mean,
dump her if they caught her in a scandal. Mark my words. If anything emerges about Harris, it'll be in the next month or two.
oh, that'd be interesting.
If
That'd be interesting.
someone could be doing some oppo from within her own party.
I would like to see, like I said, Whitmer from Whitmire. It's
Whitmer.
pronounced oddly, Whitmire, from Michigan. I think would be a really interesting choice. And it's very
Even
much the
she's a
dark horse.
liar, but whatever.
She's a liar.
Yeah, she's like been running around talking about like those guys were going to they were going to kidnap me and kill me. It's like, no, they weren't. It was a government sting operation. It's like, Scott, let's go kidnap and kill the governor. You're like, no, Ted. It's like, come on, Scott, you want to. No, Ted, I'm busy. He's like, come on, Scott. If you don't, what's the matter? Mommy won't let you. You're like, okay, all right, fine. You're under arrest. You're trying to. That's what they.
I don't think it was that as innocent as you paint it, but well,
It was entrapment, though.
was it? The court didn't see it that way.
The court never does.
Okay.
Anyway, all right.
Anyway, so yeah, so if So look for born to be ready Kamala Harris as your Democratic Party nominee for president of the United States. I think you're absolutely right by the woke stuff about the woke stuff, though. You can't fire her. I mean, good Lord.
It would be an extremely ugly look. And if it risked pissing off, losing, having the black vote go from 80 to 70%, that's terminal. You can't have that.
Yeah.
So, all right. And it might do worse than that. All right. Let's leave that there.
Yep. Coming up next. And we're back. Another day, another special election. I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the left.
So they had another special election. The GOP lost yet another seat. So their majority in the House of Representatives is now down to 2 votes. George Santos, how can we say this? The
Disgraced?
Yes,
Fucked up?
disgraced George.
Psychotic?
What is it? Okay, what does someone like that do after this happens? I mean, this was such a complete and total mess.
True.
I mean, just this wasn't like, oh gosh, I was caught having an extramarital affair. I was caught. It wasn't like I was drunk driving. It wasn't something. It wasn't a one-time thing. This was just like thing after thing. A pathological liar. I'm dying to know what his next thing is, but that doesn't matter. That's not really what we're here to discuss. But
No, you're right. I mean, I don't think he's just going to end up working at like Kmart as a bagger. I mean, I think he'll turn up. Maybe he'll do a political newsletter. I mean, maybe the whole gay thing will somehow like be involved. Like he'll have his Substack, like gay Republican politics, or I could see him turning up on Fox, although not right now, but
no,
maybe in 5 years. But the rule in America, it's like lay low for a few years, go away. But then there's like, Elliot Spitzer never came back to politics, but he's busy. I mean, he's working.
Well, you got to pay bills. So anyway, so now the GOP has lost all of the special elections, right? Over the last correct. 2 years. Mm-hmm. So does this, and stealing a page from our friends over at Center Clip, which is this wonderful app that Ted and I are involved with. They're effectively mini podcasts of 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes. And the question today, what is this? Do you see this as a trend for the GOP? Does this bode badly for them in the fall? Or are these just all of these elections singular entities unto themselves and really aren't applicable to a bigger storyline here?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting. If I were the Republicans, I would say this is a mixed bag. Here in New York, the weather was terrible. Early vote Democrats are traditionally stronger in early voting. The weather was clear, and so Democrats led in that overwhelmingly. Yesterday there was a snowstorm during Election Day, and that obviously depressed turnout, which would have been predominantly Republican. That's part of what happened. You also had a very obscure Republican challenger up against a well-known local Democrat, Tom Suozzi. And I don't think she was really, she was green and he was an experienced veteran. I think the Republicans didn't expect that seat to keep that seat because of what happened with Santos and the stank of scandal, kind of like what sunk Gerald Ford in '76. Even though, it wasn't her fault. And I also think, this is a district that is ethnically Jewish and Asian. And though she is Jewish, she's also Black. She's from Ethiopia. And even though she's interesting, she may not have been a good fit for the district. Overall, I would have expected her to lose. I think if not for the weather, the point spread in the polls would have been about 2 to 4 points. And that's to be expected. And when you consider the fact that, it's an inexperienced candidate going up against and running to replace a guy from like George Santos from the same party, I think
Yeah.
Democrats
Yeah.
should have done better than they did, really. So I wouldn't view this as like, holy shit, we fucked up. The only alarm for me if I were a Republican would be that she made immigration and the border crisis the centerpiece of her campaign. She said that she kept running ads saying that he was in with the squad, which was nonsense because people there know Tom Suozzi. They know he's a centrist, moderate Democrat. But they basically, and trying to tie the Biden border policy to him. He had nothing to do with it. He wasn't even in office at the time. It didn't fly. But I mean, if you have to worry about anything, I guess you might want to double, triple, quadruple check. Is migration, is the border really as potent of an issue going into the fall as Republicans think? And in the same way, I would ask the same question of Democrats: is abortion as big of an issue as you think? It's like last year, I was the first to say that I thought abortion would be massive for Democrats, but it's not shaping up that way this year. And I think migration may or may not be a big issue for it might be a secondary or a tertiary issue.
I think, was it Ohio that passed the pro abortion protection?
Yes. Well, there were quite a few states.
Yes. And so I think it's an issue, although but you're right about, I think in terms of Santos, being tied into the corrupt guy and the corrupt party it's a big ask to have the voters send someone who's in the same party as someone like that. So I get that, but I mean, I guess the bigger question is, does this portend what's going to happen in the fall? Or is the Republican Party in serious doo-doo? I guess most of these were in fairly.
Trump is not in extreme duty, but we don't. Again, I guess the question is Trump really ahead? I mean, if you look at the real,
I was going to ask you that,
at the Real Clear Politics average, right? I checked this morning. He's ahead by 1.5 points. That's within the margin of error.
Oh, yeah.
37 to 37.5, a statistical dead heat. But you and I both know enough arithmetic to know that doesn't add up to 100. So it seems to me like you've got currently 10% of the vote that's either undecided or leaning toward a third party or independent candidate like Cornel West or RFK Jr. Or Jill Stein. So the question is, if you're on either side, I think you're effectively flying blind. You really kind of don't know where you end up. Like that, I don't really believe that 10 points is going to go to all of those little tiny candidates when push comes to shove the second Tuesday of November. But I think, but even if you're down to like, say, so where do those let's say 3 points or 4 points or 5 points do? So those 5 spare points, assuming everything stays frozen between now and then, which it won't, but those 5 points, where do they go? And I don't think anybody knows. And I think that's the question of this campaign. That's what it'll be determinative.
Yeah, I mean, with Trump and Biden, here's the thing, Ted: 10% undecided. Can we also pass a law that if you're undecided at this point in this election, that we can just ship you someplace else, like Djibouti or just anywhere but here, because you're obviously stupid? Because come on, it's not like you don't know who Joe Biden is. It's not like you don't know who Donald Trump is.
But they're so similar.
Oh, they're very, very
They're
similar.
like twins.
Well, cognitively, they're getting pretty damn close. Trump is doing it.
And they're both old white guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Old,
well,
rich
orange. One's orange, but the other, whatever.
One's pretending not to be as rich as he is. One's pretending to be richer than he is.
I did want to ask you, this is a little off topic, but I did want to get your take on, I know you love sports.
Of course.
You live for the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
That's American football, by the way. Just
okay.
Thank you. But did you see the ad? I was gobsmacked for RFK Jr.
I did not see it. I read about it, but that's not the same thing.
It was shocking. I mean, because first of all, people of a certain age. I was too young to remember the 1960 campaign, but I remember but I had seen the commercial several times after. And it's a cartoon, Kennedy, 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 Kennedy. It was for JFK in 1960, except they put RFK Jr.'s face on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, as the story goes, he has since apologized to his family. I'm not sure why. He's running for president.
Not to mention, they already told him that they suck, that he needn't turn up for Thanksgiving this year. You
Oh,
know,
really?
yeah, I mean, they didn't say that, but I mean, they talked about like they're really pissed off at him for running and for against Biden and for for his vaccine denialism.
Well, yeah. The thing is, I like the backhand he's getting now, because he announced that he apologized to his family for you, because there's likenesses of Bobby and JFK in there as well. And I don't know why you would have to apologize to family for that, but he still has a link to it on his campaign webpage and on his X account. So he's not that sorry. He's sorry, but not that sorry.
Well, I don't know why he should apologize, considering that he didn't do the ad. It was a super PAC, and
Yeah. Well,
campaigns are not
apparently
allowed to coordinate with their super PACs.
really, Ted?
I'm sure he scrupulously follows that rule.
Yeah, they all do, as they all do.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Why would you apologize for something you didn't have anything to do with? He had something to do with it, I suspect. Is he? I mean, okay. Well, as long as we're talking about special elections and the fall campaign, is he going to be stuck? How much? What number? What is he polling at right now, roughly?
RFK,
Yeah,
19%.
that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's a lot.
when you pull a five-way race, yeah.
I mean, is it going to be that much come November? Do you suspect?
I suspect not even close. I think there's, American voters are highly susceptible to the argument that they should that voting for a candidate who isn't likely to win is a waste or serves as a spoiler. They think that, and they also are susceptible to the argument that this election matters more than any other election in all time. Trademark. And so they're always convinced that it's an existential battle between good and evil. And so, like, I can't believe you're going to vote for that, ass clown RFK. Like, you should do the right thing and vote for Trump or Biden. And so people do that. That's what they do. I mean, you see in election after election, the third party votes shrink away until the last possible moment. I mean, Howie Hawkins only got 0.2% in 2020. Now, and he was the standard bearer of the Green Party, and he was polling 3 or 4 points. Now, you might say that's not a big difference. By percentage, it's a massive difference.
Yeah.
When he got down to under 10%. He lost 90% plus of his polling by the time people actually showed up. It's not like he did or said anything bad or wrong. People just they fell into the two-party trap.
Well, I'm also wondering how many of those people just didn't vote. What does it matter? It's a third-party candidate.
There's some of those.
I think there's a lot of that.
But that's true about Democrats and Republicans as well.
Okay, so there we are.
Indeed.
I don't know how I'm having a hard time ending these things. I'm just like, they're just sort of petering out. But anyway, okay, we got one more segment coming up. It's going to be the House impeachment. I mean, this is historic. First time it's happened since 1868. And a secretary, a member of the president's cabinet, has been impeached by the House of Representatives by one vote this time. Now, I'm dying to know what you think, Ted. We'll come back, because I'm dying to know what you think. How did the Republicans how did they change the minds of the Republicans who voted against impeachment last time to impeach him this time?
Good question. All right.
We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the DMZ America podcast. I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left.
Stick around. And we're back for the third and final segment of the DMZ America podcast. It is Wednesday, February 14th. I can't read my own damn writing. February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. I didn't get you anything, Ted. I'm sorry.
What?
Sorry, man.
Despite us having the love that dare not speak its name. Love between a leftist and a conservative.
Exactly. So, well, The House of Representatives did indeed impeach Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas by one vote. And before we went into the
Second
break,
time's a charm.
yeah, what do you think? Okay, I'm not sure what you've heard, but I'm dying to know what you think happened, because there are what, two or three Republicans who said, "No, this is stupid,"
Mhm.
and it failed. And then all of a sudden, I didn't know you could bring it up this quickly, but apparently you can.
You can do it every day, apparently.
Yeah, well, because impeachment now has, absolutely zero meaning, and is just a stupid exercise in stupidity. I guess you can, but they impeached the Secretary of Homeland Security ostensibly because of lack of action they perceive as lack of action on the border, and that they somehow conflate that to mean that he acted criminally, which is strange. It's a leap.
They accused him of lying to them under oath when he said everything's cool at the border. Now, I would agree that that's a lie, but it's not really a material lie. It's sort of like saying, like, it's all under control. Look, that's an opinion. I mean, it's an opinion. It's, in that case, a dumb opinion, but it's an opinion.
Yeah, I get that. It just, but to bring it, they wanted to impeach somebody. So, they've got the impeachment hearings for President Biden, and those have gone. To my knowledge, I haven't heard anything from those of you.
Well, they are working on it. The latest was that Joe Bobalewski, I think is his name, former
God.
business partner of, I always confuse him with Joey Buttafuoco, if you remember him.
Yes,
But Bobulinski he was Hunter's business partner in this Chinese energy sort of joint venture kind of thing, where they were selling access to Joe Biden. And he just testified behind closed doors yesterday in relative to the Joe Biden impeachment investigation, that Joe was in fact the big guy referred to in Hunter Biden's emails, that he claimed that he had to give 10% of earnings to, which would mean, if true, that Biden, the president, accepted kickbacks in return to access for him. So that's what's happening there. As for Mayorkas, I don't know what I suspect, there are lots of ways that a congressman's life could be made miserable by the leadership. And I think probably the three holdouts were approached and they were told in no uncertain terms, do you like being on committees? Do you want to be, how do you feel about being primaried in the next cycle? How do you feel about like having a door on your office in the congressional office building? How do you feel about not having poo set on fire in front of your office at the congressional office building? I mean, I suspect that they were just basically told, hey, assholes, we look really bad just being 3 votes away. We need your votes. This is a party loyalty thing. We need you to be on board. And it's not going to have really any meaningful effects, and Mayorkas will not be convicted in the Senate. And
do they have to have now? I always get confused on this. Do they have to have a trial now?
They do have to have a trial, and they will have a trial, but he will, of course, obviously walk. Because I mean, look, let's face it, it's unfair. I mean, Mayorkas didn't do anything unusual. He doesn't deserve to be the second cabinet member in the history of the United States government to be impeached. He just doesn't deserve it. He's not corrupt. There's no scandal here. He's carrying out his president's policies. He didn't really do anything wrong. He's being held to account for if you want to impeach someone for the border, impeach Biden. It's like, it's really just wrong. And I don't think it's a good look. I think it's red meat for the base, and the Republican House leadership is calculating that by the time November rolls around, no one will remember this. And I think they're right.
Yeah, no, it just seems like we've slid into this dimension of stupidity of which I don't know that we'll ever climb out of. I just can't imagine for a moment this happening in virtually any other time, except for 1868. But in this instance, just seems, and I predicted this years ago that with the on the first impeachment of Donald Trump, that you're going to have the House go impeachment. It's not going to mean
You
anything.
did say this, and you're right. Everyone's going to be impeached. Clovis is in danger of being impeached right now.
You're impeached, and you're impeached, and
Everyone
you're
gets
impeached.
impeachment.
It's just stupid. It's dumb, and I hate dumb. I mean, you don't have to be dumb, but like apparently you do. Apparently now
You really do.
in this election cycle. So, okay, well, we covered that pretty quickly.
We did, and that's fine. There's no need to prolong the agony for Secretary Mayorkas or anyone else. So,
all right, then.
Scott, where can we find your stuff?
You can go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis, see my collection of my editorial gallery of my editorial cartoons. You can go to gocomics.com/Prickly City and take a look at my political comic strip. You can also go to chicagotribune.com/opinion, see a gallery of my work there. And you can go to Dallas News and see the work I do for the Dallas Morning News. And as mentioned earlier, you can hear both Ted and I and many others who are very, very smart and very, very articulate doing Center Clip. And Center Clip is effectively like mini podcasts, 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes, quick takes. It's a really great tool. I love it when there's breaking news. Oh, one last thing, if I may, Ted, before we ask where we can see all things Teddian. And I'm sorry to sandwich this in. We should have probably moved it up a little bit, but got some sad news this morning. Jack Higgins, Pulitzer Prize winning editorial cartoonist for the Chicago Sun-Times, passed away today at the age of 69 after a long illness.
Do we know what that illness was?
I do.
And are you going to tell us what that is?
Yeah, I guess I can now. He'd been suffering from dementia for quite some time. When I got to Chicago, I reached out, obviously, when I got to the job at the Chicago Tribune, I reached out to him several times, and there's a number of instances where he and I were supposed to appear at the same time on the same radio station. Another time was on a panel, and he failed to show up. And I learned much later that the columnist for the Sun-Times was trying to do like a column about him and where's Jack Higgins now. And Mrs. Higgins, apparently being very protective, would not let them write anything about him. But that's now that he's passed away, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It wasn't his fault.
Well, there was nothing to be ashamed of to begin with. I mean, it's like that happened. That's how my mom died. She died of Alzheimer's. There's no shame in it. So yeah, it's sad to hear. I mean, he was famous, most famous for that Quail cartoon, right?
Yes. For those of you from 1992, he won the Pulitzer Prize. And it was one of the few times Ted and I can tell you that cartoonists are not very generous when it comes to the Pulitzer Prize and who won it. Yeah, we're assholes. But the year that Jack won was one of the few years where I went, yeah, okay, I can see it. He had an amazing year. His portfolio is really fantastic. But the cartoon that Ted alluded to is Dan Quayle, was on the ticket and was chosen by George H.W. Bush to be the running mate. He was notoriously, Dan Quayle, kind of a lightweight, was perceived to be a lightweight, and also loved to play golf. And so he's playing golf, and he's that scene of the napalm bombing in Vietnam and the naked girl crying and running down the road. And Dan Quayle is there saying, "Mind if I play through?"
Now, was Quayle a draft dodger during the Vietnam War?
That's such a harsh word. He was, I think, wasn't he national? Didn't he get the National Guard deferment? It seems to me he got
draft dodger, just like George W. Bush.
Yeah. Yes. In short, yes.
By the way, I'm pro draft dodging from stupid wars. So I'm just one. It's viewed as hypocrisy. I personally would give you a star on Hollywood Boulevard for dodging. I mean, you sleazed out of going to kill Vietnamese people in their own homes. Yeah. Good for you. I don't even mean sarcastically.
And I'm thinking more to their thinking they were not killed by Vietnamese people.
I think that might have been more of a priority. But if, as a happy corollary of their cowardice, they decided to non-courageously go and not murder people. That's cool. That works.
Okay, so
best of all possible worlds.
So go to, I believe, I'm not sure, I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry, the URL. Just go to the Chicago Sun-Times site. You can read a very nice article about Jack and his life and his work. And 69, that also strikes a little close to home. I'm going to
Yeah.
be 65 in a couple of weeks. And
I'm 60. Yeah.
yeah, anyway,
Yes.
so God
Not
bless him.
good.
And so Ted, where can we see all things Tedian?
So aside, you can go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall, whowhatwhy.org, sputniknews.com, and Centerclip also, and also my daily Monday through Friday talk show with Angie Wong called The Final Countdown on Radio Sputnik and on Rumble and X Spaces Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 noon Eastern.
And it's an excellent show. It really
Scott's
is.
on often.
I
Not
am
as
well,
often as I'd
not
like, but
in
often.
spite of that, it's still an excellent show.
Now,
Ted and Angie do. No, you guys do a great job. It's so listenable, and they have interesting guests. They have guests nobody else has. You talk about subjects nobody else is talking about, and you talk about them in a way that nobody's talking about them. So it's really an excellent show. It'd be definitely worth your while.
Thank
You
you,
out there. So no, I do. I tune it. That's why I listen to in my studio now in the morning from 9 to 11 Central Time.
Oh, yes, that's true. I always forget that there's other time zones.
Yeah, sorry, New Yorker elitist.
Yeah, we are. It's true. All right, we'll leave that there. Scott, always a pleasure. And
As always, Mr. Rall,
good night and good luck.
and God bless America.